Mikhail, works especially on the philosophy of Russian neo-Kantianism, and he has published, among other things, Sobarnost and Totality in George Gurvich's social law doctrine.
No, not Gurvich, Sergei Gessen and Immanuel Kant.
Sorry. And the recent monograph, The Individual and Society in Neo-Kantian Philosophy of the Russian Abroad. Mikhail, you're...
Yeah, I'm here. Thank you for introducing. And let me introduce my speech about sociability and education in Kant and Hessen. It's not only speech. I prepare. I hope I prepare article from this speech, and this is a short version of my article. The exposition and analysis of the concept of sociability often proceeds from the broad interpretation of the notion as a person's propensity to communicate and their desire to take part in communal life. This interpretation equates communicability and sociability. A second, narrowly specialization definition of sociability invokes the relationship between individual interest and goals of social development, which leads to the formation of a social system that includes the norms of interaction between individuals, collective entities, communities, and the social phenomena. I'm study a process from the later definition of sociability. From the historical philosophical point of view, sociability can be analyzed in two ways. First, as an element of social philosophical doctrines, sociability in the works of Grotius, Shaftesbury, Hutcheson, Kant, and other philosophers that used this notion. And second, as a material for contemporary treatment of social life. In the first case, the specificity of the term, its content, the applicability to the analysis of concrete historical societies is used to identify trends in the interpretation of sociability by philosophers from different epochs. In the second case, the models of sociability are constructed on the basis of philosophers' ideas of individual freedom, social order, and the interaction between the individual and society. And then these models are assessed in terms of the applicability to the solution of the topical problems. In the opinion, in this article, I combine these two approaches. I look at the notion of society and critically analyze the models of sociability offered by Kant and Russian neo-Kantian Sergei Gessen from the vantage point of the contemporary interpretation of this notion. I interpret sociability as the relationship between individual interest and the ends of social development, which leads to the formation of the social system, including the norms of interaction between individuals, communities, and social phenomena. I intend to consider the specifics of the Kantian model of sociability and analyze the role of education in shaping the social structure that permits the embodiment of the ideas of freedom and equality in Kant's vision of kingdom of ends. After identifying the key criteria for the formation and organization of social order in Kant's practical philosophy, I explore Hessen's model of sociability and his vision of how the Kantian ideal of the social development can be achieved. To this end, I will address the following. First, how Gessen interprets individual free will. Second, how his theory explains individual social identification through education. And third, how he understands the creation of the social order. My aim is to establish how Kant's atomistic interpretation of society is actualized in Gessen model of society. So the first part of my speech, the features of Kant's notion of sociability. In the transcendental dialectic of Critique of Pure Reason, Kant draws a distinction between determinism and freedom and juxtaposes that to each other. In the third antinomy, he then sets forth three a priori ideas of pure reason: God, soul, and freedom, which regulate human activity and behavior. Thanks to the regulative ideas of reason, human beings overcome poor determination by natural forces. Kant associates freedom with morality, distinguishing arbitrariness in action from due. According to Kant, in their natural state, human beings live in real or constantly expected state of entity, but unlike other animals, human beings are endowed with and can actualize the capacity to be rational. Uh, they can be animal rationality. To learn to be free, human beings must limit their own power of arbitrary choice. It is accordance with the duty that distinguish a free act from an arbitrary one. Uh, the formation of sphere of being different from natural determinism is associated with oddness. Uh, to be free, a human being must therefore obey the practical law. In formulating the categorical imperative, Kant explains how adherence to duty is the precondition of the formation of a free society. I believe that in the categorical imperative, Kant presented the criteria for the formation of society, linked the acquisition of freedoms by an individual with his socialization. The individual must learn to interact with other individuals if he seeks to become free. Thanks to the categorical imperative, all people can and must think of themselves as members of society. In the formulas of categorical imperative, the principles of correlation between the individual and society, individual and collective, are laid down. The criteria for socialization are established. In the inversion formula, so act that the maximum of your will could always hold the same time as a principle of a universal legislation. Kant links individual activity with universal morality. And in the humanity formula, so act that you use humanity whether in your own person or in the person of any other, always at the same time as end, never merely as means. He asserts the supreme value of the human being, thereby linking freedom with sociability. The autonomy formula, the idea of will of every rational being as a will given universal law, establishes the status of the individual freedom as the main condition of the emerging of the common legislative will. To become a free, reasonable being mean organizing society according to the principles of reason in a way that enables the very person to exercise freedom. All three formulas focus on define the freedom of the individual as participation in the life of society. The person realizes himself as a representative of all humanity and receives value as a representative of the genus. When that person seeks to follow his duty, then he realizes his responsibility for all of humanity, realizing himself as one of the participants in the formation of the course of development of the collective social subject, humanity. According to Kant, people exhibit unsociable sociability. They seek communication and they have the inclination to become socialized, while having the propensity to individualize or isolate themselves. Because of unsociable sociability, people compete with one another, which develops their capabilities. Unsociable sociability sets the condition for society's development. The coexistence of interaction between individuals in such a way that everyone can exercise freedom will not limit the freedom of others. This is reflected in the first proposition of Kant's idea for universal history with a cosmopolitan aim. a variant of the principle of social equality. Society must set limits to the exercise of freedom so that it's compatible with the freedom of other individuals. Thus, the exercise of freedom and equality in the framework of unsaltable sociability is possible only in the society obeys external laws. Unsaltable sociability determines the direction of society development from a state of pathologically compelled agreement to moral whole. Kant refers the ideal of free society as a kingdom of ends, which he juxtaposed to the kingdom of nature. In the kingdom of ends, every individual is an end of themselves because no one might be used only as a means. This leads to equality of free individuals in secular compliance with the law to which they have given them consent. The kingdom of ends is the ideal of human development because in it the law fully coincides with the maxims of each individual. The existence of this ideal contributes to the individual's awareness of society and his role within it. Every individual, as both lawgiver and subject under the law, decides himself as contributing to the achievement of objective ends in society. I consider law and morality within the framework of the model of unsaltable sociability as tools for the formation of social cohesion. And Kant's pedagogy make it possible to consider law and morality in this role. In Kant, atomistic treatment, the formation of society depends on whether individuals can become aware of themselves as members of society and put their behavior under the control of their intelligence. Therefore, pedagogy is crucial for the formation of human beings and human community. Education fosters moralization, so a person's ability to set good ends instill the sense of the individuals don't exist by themselves and don't act separately from society. They are part of society and their choice influence the social order. Therefore, each member bears responsibility for every act. Kant divides education into care and formation. There's a tendency to improve a person in practical education from an individual interested only in satisfying his needs to a responsible participant in society. Practical education consists of three stages: the scholastic mechanic formation for the acquisition of skillfulness, and accordingly the formation of the ability to set goals and achieve them, that is to consider oneself as an individual. Second, pragmatic formation with regard to prudence, understanding public value in one's own activity and awareness of one's and a participant in society. And third, moral formation with regards to ethic, implying an understanding of oneself by the entire human race. This sequence shows the connection between the awareness and duty and the socialization of person, the formation of identification as a participant in society. In the second stage of practical education, a person realizes the dependence of his own well-being on the ability to communicate, interact with other people, guided by legal principles, while at the final stage of education, a person is guided by moral law. He acts according to his duty and bears responsibility in their action for the whole society. Of course, a person can do things that are not necessarily guided by duty. However, in this case, he will remain at the second stage of development and the second stage of education. Will not open for himself comprehension as an element of humanity. It should be noted that Kant notes the discipline does not promise morality. Moral culture must be based on maxim, not on discipline. Discipline creates a habit of obedience and can serve a basis for character formation, but it's not itself a moral tool. Discipline helps the child to become aware of duty and pulls the human being out of the animal state. Thanks to discipline, every person understands and can obey the laws. Every person aware of the possibility of existing their freedom under the condition within a certain society. Uh, Discipline enables every individual to be aware of these limits of their freedom, where the freedom of other individual begins. Uh, so, Kant depends the ideas in the treatise towards to perpetual peace. The quest of perpetual peace presupposes the state which enables first, freedom of individuals; second, depends of all upon a single common legislation as subjects; and third, equality, the law of the equality as a citizens of state. Freedom and equality make it possible to achieve collective unity of the united will, instead of resting on the contingent desires of individuals to live under conditions of social order. Uh, Uh, this Kant explains the emergence and development of society on the basis of principles of his deontological ethics. However, he does not propose a mechanism for harmonizing the individual and the social. The interest of one person uh, will the developmental goals of society as such. And yet, for the Kantian ideal of social law development to be put into practice, it is necessary to explain how, as an individual, interact in the pursuit of their interest. Individuals balance the exercise of freedom with the development of society as a whole. An important step towards solving this problem was made by Southwest German's school of Neo-Kantianism, which expands Kant's idea of subjectivity as intersubjectivity on the basis of this notion of value, and the axiologically reinterpreted the specificity of each individual's participation in the process of social development. The Russian philosopher Sergei Gessen studies under Henry Rickert, and he uh, suggests a new decision, come up with an original axiological model of sociability. So the next fragment, next part of this speech, it's Kant's interpretation of sociability in Hessen's axiology. Following Kant, Hessen links socialization to human freedom with the overcoming of our natural state. Like Kant, Hessen holds the individual in granted the opportunity to be free, to overcome natural determinants of choice and become aware of duty. Hessen, like Kant, believes that the freedom of the individual is the primary condition for the development of society and culture. In his view, human beings become free only by being involved in the socio-cultural process. Hessen used the anti-naturalistic justification of freedom as overcoming natural determinism and forming moral responsibility. Uh, Hessen used Rickert's axiology to explain how correlation between individual and collective interest in society development. Uh, so, Gessen connect socio-cultural development with the life of individuals by using a specific role of education. The task of education is turning the natural human into a cultural one. Hessen used the Kantian juxtaposition of natural and free to provide a moral justification of sociability. Education is necessary for freedom to be understood as duty, enunciation of the notion of freedom as free choice. To become free, a person must choose to be slave of the surrounding reality. Every person must cultivate discipline which enables them to overcome arbitrary free choice, where arbitrary acts are characterized by instability, passive dependence on the external world, and are therefore accidental and unpredictable pre-action, and in the true sense of the word, are stable and independent of the changing influences of environment. Hessen notes that obedience is the condition that allows us to consider law and morality as stages of process of gaining freedom by an individual. Hessen believes that three stages of upbringing, which Kant identified, correspond to the three stages of gaining freedom. Cultivation of the ability to follow technical rules, the rules of skills. Second stage, civilization of the ability to follow the legal prescriptions in order to take care of their own well-being. And third, moralizing the ability to act according to the categorical imperative, to act unconditionally regardless of material condition. This sequence taken allow Gessen to understood how every person may be morality, and how every person can be the part of the whole humanity. So one I have no more time, I think. So Gessen thinks that his the using discipline is basic for constructing the sociality, and the part of the law must be according with formation of individuals as participants of all humanity. So he used a special study in organization of social order. He used this notion of social law that better, in his opinion, better than liberal and socialist versions. And so it maybe the basic for formation new society where government it's not rules, not controls, sorry, not rules of the system of law, but only looks for all for harmonization of all system of social laws, and all every social law is borne by communities. So proceeding from Rickard's axiology, Gessen describes the social cultural development as a process of embodiment of cultural values in historical reality. Society is the pre-being of a multitude of people who interact with one another in the process of realizing cultural values. Hessen interprets freedom as creativity and linked its actualization to socialization. thus proposing a method of harmonizing individual and collective interests. Society as a whole enables every individual to exercise free will. The sociability model that can be reconstructed on the basis of Kant's social philosophical doctrine presupposes that every individual in conscience of being a member of a community and seeks to become part of social unity. Hessen thus tries to solve the question of achieving the moral unity proposed by Kant. To chart the paths towards these goals, it's necessary, according to Hessen, to rethink the function of education and the state. And education makes discipline, and state to make discipline is a basic for forming the new society. I think that's all.
Okay, thank you very much.
Sorry.
It helped, at least it helped me to be able to follow you, that I had your paper in front of me. Room is open for comments and discussions. Any questions? Peter Baumann,
Yeah.
please.
Thank you. Mikhail, there was a passage in your abstract I wanted to ask you about. It's about the role of the state. So you're saying the Hessen strips the state of its lawmaking function. And then later you're saying he proposes a new social structure. Individuals create collective entities, each of which forms its own legal order, while the state coordinates these legal orders to prevent conflict and contradictions amongst them.
Mhm.
So when I read the first bit, I thought, oh, is there some anarchism going on? But then the last thing you say, the state coordinates these different entities. It will do that according to some rules that it itself has come up. So in some sense, I guess the state is still making laws, or am I missing something? Are there laws and laws, different kinds of rules? The state doesn't make laws in one sense, but it still imposes rules about coordination.
Thank you for question. Hessen have an answer. I have an answer in Hessen's works, but it's not good answer for all. It's a this the concept of social law is not studying in critical literature, but one philosopher, one famous sociologist, George Gurvich, is criticized the conception of social law, and the main line of his critics is the state will be not functionality without sorry.
No problem.
Sorry, will be not functionality without any rules, without any capacities. He thinks that maybe two ways to realize this system: maybe anarchist system, or maybe totalitarianism, where anything will be used for getting the unity of social structure. I think it's a very hard suggestion of Gurvich. I can add that Gessen think that state it's not the creator of laws, but state is stand above many social laws, and status of state is like international organization like UNESCO or PASE, and but principles of state is must be used for all new or old or maybe potential social rules, because if it's not using, we get an anarchist system. It's a oxymoron, anarchist system.
So just out of curiosity, if I may just briefly follow up, I couldn't find anything on useful on there's no Wikipedia article on Hessen. So I wonder, I mean, there's a long tradition of anarchism in Russia. There has been, right? Did he kind of respond to that? And since he died in 1950, I mean, was he in the Soviet Union, or is there anything of context, political context of his times that would throw further light on his thinking about all this? Is he a liberal reacting to Leninism and then Stalinism, or this is a bit aside of what you were talking about, but coming from my ignorance, my complete ignorance about Hessen, I thought it could be interesting to understand better what he's up to. Thank you.
Thank you. And my small addition, in the last works of Hessen, Hessen write about constitution as one of the basic principles of existence of state. And he analyzes the Stalin's constitution. So it's a way to investigate how he not contradict with his social law. I don't know now.
Oh, okay. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Further questions, commentaries? Not, I'm the next for the moment in my line, and I have one very specific and concrete question. The famous Kantian triad between rules of skill, rules of prudence, and moral rules, which is reproduced in Hessen, as you said. It seems to me that the first and the third one, and those are always the easy ones, are correctly reproduced. Rule of skill, or a skill, is something by which we use certain inanimate objects in a technological manner in order to pursue a certain specific contingent goal. What rules of morality are, according to Kant, is also clear. But rules of prudence, you said that Hessen, is it pronounced Hessen or Hessen? I don't know. Hessen views that as specifically legal rules. And I don't think that the Kantian notion of rules of prudence or pragmatic imperatives has anything to do with the law. Kant makes different points about what he means thereby, but one of the central explications of the term is related to a distinction of concepts of prudence, namely between Weltklugheit and Schulklugheit, worldly prudence and scholarly prudence. Sorry, not world prudence and private prudence. So private prudence is the prudence to maximize one's own happiness, and world prudence is the prudence in using certain ways of conduct in order to make people do what one wants them to do. Yeah, to use people for one's own purpose. And then Kant says in the groundwork to the metaphysics of morals, I think that's on 416 in the Academy edition in a footnote, that the proper meaning of prudence, and therefore also of pragmatic imperatives, is not either of these two, not world prudence in the sense of using other persons for one's own goals, or not private prudence in the sense of maximizing one's own happiness, but the prudence to make the social world and to live in the social world, die Welt, in such a way that all human beings successively, from one generation to another, have a better life than an earlier generation had. That, he says, is the best explication of rules of prudence. And that matches very much with his understanding of universal history from a cosmopolitan point of view, anthropology from a pragmatic point of view, and so on and so forth. And so that has nothing whatsoever to do with rules of the law, which according to Kant are a specific case of moral rules anyhow, as we know from the metaphysics of moral. So I wonder why Hessen reconceptualized the distinction in this kind of way. That's my first question. Then I have another one, but first this one.
Thanks for this question. But Hessen links education and state as two tools for forming the. Sorry.
Everyone turns off his mobile phone, please.
Sorry. For forming freedom, the freedom of individual. He thinks, not Kant, he thinks that in Kant philosophy we have three stage forming our freedom, and these three stages indicate in three stages of education that Kant write. So scholastic mechanical formation, pragmatic formation, and moral formation. So he thinks that first and second stage of this process of create the freedom of every individual, it's making by education that every person used to that discipline and open for themselves discipline, and state do that's not only for pupils, not only for young men, women, young humans, for all people, do it more deeper, more widely, and study for all peoples, for every man and every woman, that the freedom used only in social order. After that, from Hessen's point of view, every human can create his way in the freedom, how he can use his activity for creating new content in culture. He thinks like Kant that freedom it's a way of socialization, but more radically than Kant. I know Kant take a line of demarcation in the one side moral, in the other side law of state. It's law of state. It's not determinate moral and moral law determines the law. It's different.
Can I briefly interrupt you? Because I think I have not phrased my question clearly enough for you to understand it. Let me rephrase it. Why does Hessen think he simply reproduces Kant on the second element of this threefold distinction, when Kant does not have specifically legal norms in mind when he speaks about rules of prudence or pragmatic imperatives?
Mhm.
Kant does not mean specifically legal rules when he speaks about pragmatic imperatives. Why does Hessen think he reproduces Kant? Is that you could give an answer that has to do with a specific historical influence on that made Hessen think that, or maybe it was his he was, as I read, practicing as a legal expert and was invited by the UNESCO to write the Declaration of Human Rights and everything. But why? Why does he change the meaning? People can change the meaning of what other people say, but one wonders sometimes why they do it. I just want an explanation for that.
Okay, thanks. I think Hessen thinks that Kant's pedagogy influenced on in his aim of pedagogy. So aim of pedagogy is forming the freedom of individual. Kant influenced to Northrop, Paul Northrop, and Northrop constructed 3 stages of forming the freedom: anomy, heteronomy, and autonomy. In his article, Hessen write article Pedagogy of Kant, and explain how why Kant he used Kant's pedagogy and why it links with Northrop and Rickert. So I've in my paper I describe how he used the ideas of Kant, but I don't sure that I can explain why he thinks that it's why he thinks that Kant ideas it's influenced for Northrop. It's a topic not not of this article. It's a more deep question. I think it's a problem that I can solve in another question, but now I don't take a good answer for this. I know this problem, but I don't solve it in this article.
No problem. Better to say that there is an interesting historical change in meaning that needs further historical philosophical elucidation or inquiry. But first one has to note that, and Kant himself changes the standard meaning of the notion of what is pragmatic or what is prudential and so on. And it's barely even noted by Kant scholars themselves. If I may add another question, you say at the beginning, and that's sort of kind of the central, one of the central guiding threads of your work, as I understand it, that Hessen overcomes Kant's atomistic conception of society. Yeah. So you still think that's true? That's a correct description of how the two are related to one another. Hessen overcomes Kant's atomistic conception of society. If that's true,
yes, I think so. I think so. He do it. He used axiological conception of Rickert, and think that normativity is make it possible to
Let me rather tell you how I see Kant thinking about individuals and society. Okay, and then see what you think is missing in Kant's picture according to Hessen. Yeah.
Two points. Hessen wrote about this. First, because every human is like a only a type of people, not original original soul. It's only like robots in an atomistic picture of Kant's model. Hessen think. And second, he thinks that Kant don't understand how people construct social communities that have another more difficult quality, that not only the not only the characteristic of each other, but their own characteristics.
Has Hessen read Kant's Anthropology?
Excuse me?
Has Hessen read Kant's Anthropology? Yes or no? Do you know that? Yes or no? Simple question. You don't know. It's okay. Maybe it wasn't translated. Maybe it wasn't translated at that time. Very, very possible. Yeah. But I want to point out that in that Anthropology, Kant has especially in the second part, nowadays totally outdated, but a complex theory of human personality that directly contradicts this description of Hessen's perception of what Kant thinks human beings are. Yeah, he has the idea, Kant, that human beings form over the time of their individual education, over their becoming parts of a society, over shaping their own characteristics, their own individual personality. And everyone is just like so different from everyone else, yeah, that you need a complex theory of temperaments, of character traits, of ways in which human beings form their own second nature, as he calls it, their other nature, through applications of their faculty of thinking and so on and so forth, in order to overcome, for instance, some people grow up as children of carpenters or of churchmen and so on, and that influences them. But over their education and over their ability to think for themselves, they may overcome that and shape their own personality. That's all there in Kant already. Yeah. And it seems to me that if Hessen speaks of an atomistic conception of Kant, that is a naive misunderstanding of Kant.
Thanks. I think Hessen used Kant's, but through the axiological concept of recruit. He more neo-Kantian than Kantian. And
yeah. That's not a question of how Kantian or non-Kantian or neo-Kantian Hessen is. It's a question of whether he is right or wrong in a certain description of Kant's view of the individual and society. And I think he's flat out wrong.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that's my point. Make myself 100% clear. It's not a criticism of you, it's a criticism of Hessen.
I think wrong.
Okay.
I think wrong. But I think it's naive opinion of Gessen about concepts of unsociable sociability of Kant.
Mm-hmm.
I think that he don't understand the deep level of Kantian conception, but he used his basic thesis of unsociable sociability for his conception,
Mm-hmm.
his own conception, that only a discipline prompts from every person forms the participant of society, and education is a way to open a morality as a value.
Mm-hmm.